The first time everyone laughed, the old man didn't even flinch. Rain poured outside the glass walls of Orion Towers, the kind of rain that blurred the city into streaks of gray. At the entrance, standing stiff in a faded security uniform that no longer fit his thinning frame, was Grandpa Raghav. His back was slightly bent, his hair completely white, and his hands trembled when he adjusted his cap. People whispered as they passed him. Some smirked, some rolled their eyes. "That old guard is crazy," someone muttered. "He keeps saying the boss's grandson is coming today," another laughed. Raghav heard everything. He always did. But he stood straight, eyes fixed on the revolving door, as if waiting for destiny itself to walk in. That morning, a young woman stopped in front of him. Her name was Anaya. She worked on the 23rd floor as a junior analyst, invisible to most people in the building. She was used to being overlooked, but she never overlooked others. When she saw the old guard standing drenched near the door, she paused, held her umbrella over him, and smiled. "Grandpa, why are you standing here in the rain?" she asked gently. Raghav looked at her, surprised, as if no one had spoken to him kindly in years. His cloudy eyes lit up. "I'm waiting for my grandson," he said with absolute certainty. "He's coming today. Big day for him." Anaya glanced around. She had heard the rumors. Everyone had. The CEO of Orion Towers was a ruthless billionaire who never acknowledged family, let alone a poor old guard. People said Raghav had lost his mind after his son died. Yet something in his voice didn't sound mad. It sounded hopeful. "I'll wait with you," Anaya said, without knowing why. Raghav smiled, a smile so pure it felt like a blessing. Raghav had once been a powerful man. Years ago, he was head of security for Orion's founder, Mr. Mahesh Malhotra. He had saved Mahesh's life during a violent factory riot, shielding him with his own body. In gratitude, Mahesh promised him lifelong respect. But time is cruel. Mahesh died. His empire passed to his cold-hearted son, and then to his ambitious grandson, Arav Malhotra. Somewhere along the way, promises were forgotten. Raghav's son, Vikram, worked as a driver for the Malhotra family. When Vikram died in a hit-and-run accident that was quietly buried by money and influence, Raghav lost everything. His wife followed him into death within a year. With no savings and no voice, Raghav accepted a lowly guard job at the same building he once protected with pride. Only one truth kept him alive. Vikram had loved a woman from the Malhotra household. Their relationship was hidden, forbidden, and ended in tragedy. Before Vikram died, he told Raghav something that changed his life forever. "Arav is my son," Vikram whispered on his deathbed. "They took him from us. But blood never lies." Since that day, Raghav waited. For justice, for truth, for his grandson. Inside the building, chaos brewed. Arav Malhotra had returned from London unexpectedly. The board of directors buzzed with tension. Arav was known as brilliant, ruthless, and emotionally distant. Love, kindness, family, these were words he did not believe in. When Arav stepped out of his black car, surrounded by assistants, Raghav's heart nearly burst. "There," he whispered, "that's him, my grandson." People laughed again. "That's the CEO, old man." "Your grandson. Don't embarrass yourself." But Anaya watched closely. Arav paused mid-step. His eyes met Raghav's. For a brief second, the world froze. Arav felt it. Something unfamiliar. A strange pull in his chest, like a memory he never lived but somehow missed. He shook it off and walked inside, but his steps slowed. That day, Anaya couldn't concentrate on her work. Her mind kept returning to the old guard's eyes and the way Arav had looked at him. There was something unresolved, something painful in the air. Over the next few weeks, Anaya began talking to Raghav every morning. She brought him tea, she listened to his stories of loyalty, loss, and a grandson who didn't know who he was. "You don't think I'm crazy, do you?" Raghav asked one evening. Anaya shook her head. No, I think you're brave for holding on to the truth when the world refuses to hear it. Her belief became his strength. Fate, slow but deliberate, began weaving their paths together. Anaya was assigned to a project directly under Arav. Late nights, tense meetings, impossible deadlines. Arav noticed her not for her beauty, but for her honesty. She challenged him when others feared him. She spoke when silence was easier. One night, during a power outage, they were stuck in the office together. "You're different," Arav said quietly. "You don't look at me like I'm untouchable." "Because you're not," Anaya replied. "You're just human, even if you pretend not to be." Something cracked inside him. Their connection deepened, slowly, painfully. Arav had walls built from years of abandonment and betrayal. Anaya had scars of her own, a childhood shaped by poverty and loss. They found comfort in each other's silence. One evening, Anaya told him about Raghav. "He's not crazy," she said firmly. "He believes you're his grandson." Arav laughed bitterly. "People say many things to get attention." "He doesn't want attention," Anaya replied. "He wants truth." Those words haunted Arav. Curiosity led him to investigate. Medical records, old employment files, DNA traces buried under sealed documents. The deeper he dug, the more the truth screamed at him. Raghav was right. The man he thought was his father was not his biological parent. Vikram was. The revelation shattered Arav. Anger, grief, betrayal all collided. He confronted his family, only to be met with silence and guilt. The truth had been hidden to protect the family name. In that moment, Arav realized something terrifying. All his life, he had been rejecting the one person who loved him unconditionally. He went to the building entrance that night. Raghav was sitting alone. "I'm sorry," Arav said, his voice breaking. "I should have seen you sooner." Raghav stood up, tears streaming down his wrinkled face. He touched Arav's face like a prayer. "I knew you'd come," he whispered. "Blood always finds its way home." Their reunion did not come without consequences. The board turned against Arav. Media scandals erupted. Stock prices fell. Arav was pressured to deny Raghav publicly, to protect the company. "You can keep everything," Arav said in a press conference, "but I will not deny my grandfather." Anaya watched from the crowd, tears in her eyes. Arav lost his position temporarily. He lost wealth. He lost power. But he gained something far greater. Family. Love followed truth naturally. Arav proposed to Anaya not with diamonds, but with honesty. "You believed in him when no one did," he said. "You believed in me before I believed in myself." They married in a simple ceremony. Raghav stood proudly beside them, no longer in a guard's uniform, but in dignity restored. Years later, Orion Towers had a new policy board. Fair wages, ethical leadership, humanity before profit. At the entrance of the building, a photograph hung on the wall. It showed an old guard, a young woman, and a man who finally learned who he was. The caption read, "Never mock a voice that speaks the truth quietly. Sometimes belief is all it takes to change destiny." Truth has a strange way of changing the air around people. After the press conference, Orion Towers no longer felt the same. The glass walls still shone, the elevator still hummed, but something invisible had shifted. Power had been questioned. Silence had been broken. Arav Malhotra was no longer the untouchable CEO. He was a man standing at the edge of loss, holding on to truth with both hands. The board removed him temporarily, citing instability and emotional decisions. Headlines screamed scandal. Investors panicked. Old allies disappeared overnight. Arav moved out of his penthouse and into a modest apartment closer to the city's quieter side. For the first time in his life, he woke up without servants, without assistants, without the weight of inherited arrogance. And for the first time, he felt free. Raghav moved in with him. The old man woke before sunrise every day, making tea with shaking hands, humming old songs his wife used to sing. Arav would watch him from the doorway, heart heavy with regret. Decades stolen, years wasted in ignorance. "I should have protected my father," Arav said one morning, staring at the steam rising from his cup. Raghav shook his head gently. "You didn't know. Sin lies with those who hide truth, not those born into lies." Those words slowly healed something inside Arav. Anaya became the bridge between past and future. She had quit Orion Towers after the scandal, refusing to work under leadership that demanded silence over justice. Money became tight. Life became real. But something beautiful happened in that struggle. Arav learned the value of effort. Anaya learned that love is strongest when tested. They cooked together, failed together, laughed over burnt food and broken routines. Yet the world was not done testing them. One evening, Arav received an anonymous envelope. Inside were photos of Anaya with a man from her past, taken years ago, twisted with lies attached. The message was clear. "Leave her, or your truth will be destroyed further." Arav confronted Anaya, not with anger, but fear. "Is there something you haven't told me?" he asked quietly. Anaya's eyes filled with tears. She told him everything. A past relationship where she had been used, discarded, judged. A chapter of her life she wasn't proud of, but had survived. "I didn't lie," she said. "I was afraid you'd see me the way the world does." Arav held her face gently. "I was born from a lie," he said. "How could I ever judge your truth?" That night, they chose trust over doubt. The threats escalated. Raghav collapsed one afternoon at the park, his heart weakened by stress and years of hardship. At the hospital, as machines beeped softly, Arav realized how fragile time truly was. "I waited my whole life to be called your grandson," Raghav whispered faintly. "Now I can rest." "No," Arav said firmly, gripping his hand. "You'll stay. I still need you." Anaya stood beside them, praying silently, understanding now that love was not romance alone. It was responsibility. Raghav survived. And his survival ignited something fierce in Arav. He returned to the corporate battlefield, not as a ruthless heir, but as a man with nothing left to hide. With evidence, testimonies, and courage, Arav exposed years of corruption within Orion's leadership. The same board that mocked Raghav now stood accused. Public support shifted. People saw the truth behind the madness they once laughed at. Weeks later, Arav was reinstated. But he refused the old throne. He restructured the company, stepped down from unchecked power, and built a council that included workers, guards, drivers, and staff. People who had voices but were never heard. Raghav was honored publicly for his loyalty and sacrifice. When he walked onto the stage, the same people who once laughed now stood in applause. Tears rolled down his face, not for pride, but for vindication. Anaya watched from the front row, her heart full. Later that night, under a quiet sky, Arav took her hand. "You didn't just believe in him," he said. "You believed in a truth that scared everyone else." She smiled softly. "Sometimes the bravest thing is to listen." The world had tested them with doubt, loss, and pain. They answered with truth, patience, and love. And somewhere deep within Orion Towers, a legacy was being rewritten. Not in gold or glass, but in courage. Chapter 3 would begin, not with power regained, but with something far rarer. Peace.